A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen takes place in Norway in the late 1800s. It talks about Nora and Torvald Helmer, a couple. Nora is somewhat naive, and Torvald is a cheap man, but he's soon to be a bank manager, which gets Nora kind of excited because they have a lot of financial struggles. They both live in Norway with their children, who spend most of their time with a nurse. This story already sounds like a loveless marriage with some realization waiting to happen, right? Nora takes out a loan. She took it out back then to save Torvald's life. Krogstad, who loaned her the money, blackmails her eventually. Eventually, Torvald finds out, and he basically disowns her because, yes, back then, once you married a man, you were basically his property. Nora is naive, and she believes that Torvald is truly in love with her. She seems to be stuck in the honeymoon phase, while he seems to be married just because it's kind of what you're supposed to do back then. He seems to more in lust with her than in love with her. He often degrades her because of her gender. After Torvald finds out about the loan, Nora contemplates suicide because she believes that her oh-so-loving husband would risk his life and his career just to maintain their reputation as a couple and just so he could pay off her loan. Quite the opposite, really. He actually wants to maintain their relationship, but just for looks, nothing more. He expects to upkeep the bourgeois respectability. This basically means that it has the expectations of the upper middle class, which means financial success and obviously a good marriage without any debt and good morals in your children and in your wife. This makes her realize he is not the man she believed he was. He forces her to leave and leave the children behind. Obviously, you can tell from this short summary that Torvald kind of dragged Nora along. She was there to please him and do as he said, while he was in charge of every aspect of their lives other than what happens in the home. Ibsen wrote the notes for A Doll's House in 1878. He wrote, "A woman cannot be herself in contemporary society. It is an exclusive male society with laws drafted by men and with counsel and judges who judge feminine conduct from the male point of view." This obviously proves to you already that he wrote this play in order to kind of inspire some kind of change. Obviously, back then, people didn't really take it well. They didn't believe that Nora was a realistic character. Most women would not leave their husband, and they would just kind of take it. So it did get some backlash from the community, but overall, it did help the progressive era towards women. The late 1800s. Women stayed home, they cleaned, they looked after their children, they waited for their husbands to get home mostly while they did all this. Obviously, Nora, she had a nurse, so she really wasn't that involved mother. She was kind of really more like Torvald's, just his love interest who happened to have his kids. Women were not allowed to take out a loan or even divorce. Men actually had to sign off on their loans, and they just could not get a divorce without their permission or unless the men wanted to get a divorce. So, up until about 30 years ago, women could not obtain a business loan. While there wasn't a law prohibiting this, they just simply weren't issued. Women had to have a male relative to co-sign. It got to the point where actually a female nurse, she had been working at a nursing home for several weeks, and she actually had to get her 17-year-old son to co-sign in order for her to get a loan, or else she simply could not get one just based off her gender. So what exactly is the HR 50/50 and how did it come about? It's just basically an act making it legal and kind of forcing banks really to legally give a female a loan without a co-signature of a husband or a male relative. Men actually feared that women would abandon their homemaker roles, which to that the National Association of Women's Business Owners argued women had the experience to manage a business because they managed their family, they managed their household budget, and back then the moral aspects of the home were very, very important, and they obviously were doing a decent job balancing that, so why would they not be able to balance a business? So eventually it did pass, and now thank God you can just go to the bank and get obviously you may require a co-signature if your credit's bad, but at least you have the opportunity to get your foot in the door and not just get told no because of your gender. Women in the 19th century.
people who receive money from the Poor Relief Fund, which now to us that would really be known as our welfare checks or like any kind of food stamps, any kind of government aid. This also affected housewives whose husbands were dependent on Social Security benefits, because if their husband made enough money to vote, you could vote. Housewives married to husbands who were able to provide for their families were entitled to vote. In 1901, women gained limited suffrage rights at local elections. This included women whose husbands made an income taxable of 300 Norwegian kroner in rural areas, and those in cities, it was 400 kroners. Women who were married to a husband with equivalent income had the right to vote. These rules applied to the local elections in 1901, 1904, and 1907. The right to vote also ensured the right to run for election in the city council. In 1907, women gained limited suffrage at general elections. The same rules concerning taxable income applied for general elections as for local elections. In 1910, women gained universal suffrage at local election, which America almost hopped on the train at that time. 1913, the universal suffrage was introduced at general elections. From this year on, women would also be elected for parliament at the city council. In 1916, women achieved the right to be appointed as cabinet ministers and to the positions of government, so they could run. Torvald and the law. In Act 2, he constantly is bringing up how she's really just kind of there for him, and he really kind of limits her roles as a woman, and it is very clear what era they're living in back then. In Act 2, he says, "That is like a woman. You know what I think about that. No debt, no borrowing." When she brings up that they should get a loan because he's about to become a bank manager, so they will finally have that financial freedom she is looking for. He obviously is stereotyping women, and he's obviously kind of saying that we obviously have some kind of shoplifting addiction and we cannot balance our money. In Act 3, he says, "No man would sacrifice his honor for the one he loves." And she says, "It's a thing hundreds of thousands of women have done," which is kind of true. Women have sacrificed education, they have sacrificed jobs, they have sacrificed everything in this era to really just be behind that man and really lift him up, and he gets all the shine while this woman is the one who's keeping that honorable family that is so respected in this era. You can find examples of his stereotypes throughout the whole thing. This was actually the point that Edison was trying to prove. Women were just limited to their genders, and they had no other really need to do more. And
so Henrik Ibsen, this actually caused a lot of controversy because back then, obviously women could not get a divorce. So how did Nora leave Torvald, and how was this realistic? Well, it actually, it opened a lot of people's eyes. They were obviously seeing the very limited role that women played. They were seeing how really replaceable he was kind of painting them out to be, and it made them kind of click and just realize what exactly they were, and it inspired a lot of women for more progressive acts, which eventually, obviously got them the right to vote. Obviously it just was not what just one play, but it definitely kind of encouraged them and persuaded them to not just play their role and seek for more than what they were getting, because they definitely deserved more.